Hey guys, it is in. The verdict is in. I'm trying to pull it up. Gonna go back to when they were. We're about 4 minutes behind. So please, I'm gonna start sharing this. No spoilers, no spoilers in the chat, please, please, no spoilers in the chat. Some of us have not watched it. Um, let's see here. No spoilers, guys. We'll do it on 1.25 until we get to the important part.
Jurors entering.
Hey, Melly, glad you're here. Shambles, Kelly Dimes, Spudler, Steffi, Kate the Bestest, Nicole, Flipper, K-Brace, Tamara.
Clear, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Smith.
Don't worry, Nicole, you're fine, love.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you may have a seat.
Hey, Stevie, I'm a little nervous.
Thank you very much. And I understand that you have received a verdict. I just want to say, first of all, to those who are in the audience, there has been a jury verdict reached. To everyone in attendance, and many of you have been here for quite some time, I will ask that there not be any emotional reactions and no disruptive outbursts. So at this point, I am going to ask the foreperson to please stand. Juror 5. And have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Was it unanimous?
Yes, it was.
Has a verdict been filed in or filled in and signed and dated by you?
Yes, it has.
And if you would please hand the verdict to Deputy Solomon. Thank you, Deputy.
Does she look nervous? I mean, she looks a little nervous. We do have it sped up slightly, but she does look a little
Solomon, for
nervous.
handing that up.
I hope she's shitting her pants. Her face is pink.
I'm going to ask counsel to approach and take a look at the verdict form.
Me too, Steffi, me too. Honestly, though, even for anyone, this has got to be probably this moment right here is the most nerve-wracking portion of a trial. Just not knowing what it's going to be, but good. I'm glad it's nerve-wracking for her. For others, I don't know. Heavy breathing around her collarbone. I see that too.
As to the verdict, it reads as
okay, let me slow it. Sorry, I wanted to make sure we listen to this on normal speed.
follows. We, the jury, find as follows: malice murder. We find the defendant guilty.
Yes!
Count 2, felony murder.
Don't
we
look
find
confused,
the defendant
bitch.
guilty.
Oh.
Count 3, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 4, concealing the death of another. We find the defendant guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We find the defendant guilty. Count 6, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 7, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 8, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 9, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 10, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 11, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 12, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 13, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 14, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 15, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 16, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 17, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 18, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. and count 19, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Okay. And is there anything further from the state?
Guilty on all charges. All of the
From
charges.
the defense?
Your Honor, we ask both.
Certainly. So, members of the jury, this is something that very often happens. You will be asked questions by the clerk, 3 questions in particular, I believe, and simply answer the questions. Madam Clerk.
Juror number 1, was this your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 2. Juror number 2. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 3. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 4. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 5. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror
I don't
number
know
6.
why she
Was
ever
that your
thought
verdict
it
then?
was going to be
Yes.
Is
anything
this your
different.
verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 7. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 8. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 9. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 10. Was that your verdict then?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes, ma'am.
Juror number 11.
Yes.
Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 12. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Anything further at this time with the juries?
No, Your Honor.
With the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service,
Thank you.
for your
Thank
time,
you.
for your
Thank
energy.
you for doing your job,
This has
jury.
been an important, more than 2 weeks now that you've spent with the court, and your time and attention is deeply appreciated. I am going to release you. If
MJ's
anyone wants to
working,
speak
but I
with you
messaged
about
her.
your deliberations and you
I didn't tell
want
her what it
to,
was.
you may do so now. You're being released from the instructions. You're not under any obligation to speak with anyone about your experience, but you may do so if you
Oh,
choose to.
oh, poor
I am
Leilani.
ordering that there be no contact with the jurors in the courthouse or on the courthouse property.
Did you cry like
But I
that
do
when you
release
put
you
your
at this
baby in
point.
a dumpster?
Thank you. You're free to go.
Because you weren't crying like that, seeing all the evidence. He will not be forgotten, Melly. You remember it? Or no, it wasn't Melly who said that. My chat jumped too fast for me. SG. Yeah. I don't think. She's a very selfish individual.
All right, everyone may please have a seat. Sentencing will not occur at this time. It's going to be scheduled for another date. That date will be determined. And of course, if there's anything to be presented in aggravation or mitigation, I'll hear it at that time. All right. Is there anything further at this point from the state?
No, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you as well for
Good job, Superman.
your service from the state as well as from the defense. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
It was a fair jury. She was tried by her peers. They put out all the evidence. That's all out there. Hey, Claus, did you go to this part of it? Were you there? I wasn't looking at the crowd to see if you were in there. There's definitely more people there today than there have been. Guys, guilty on all Oh, she didn't go today. Okay. Guilty on all charges. Yeah, there was no warning whatsoever. I had it pulled up. I had Law and Crime going in the background just listening. So I paused it and fired up a live really quickly and made sure I didn't hear anything. Went over to Court TV because they have better audio. Oh my gosh, guys, what do you think? I mean, I feel like justice was served. I told you, I felt like they were gonna convict on malice murder, on all the charges. I feel like a lot of people were getting confused about what malice murder is. Malice murder is just murder in the first degree in most other states. I felt like they proved that. Um, they don't have to prove motive and um, what's the other and or how he died. But I felt like they did a good job of showing her motive. They did a good job of laying out what we could, the circumstantial evidence of how he died, the very best that they could. And I think the jury did an amazing job putting that all together, taking it into consideration. They weren't as quick as I thought. I thought we would hear something last night. And they went till after lunch today. But I think that's also a good thing. It means that they were going through all the evidence and giving her exactly what she deserves. Yeah, curious. The lies were so telling. She lied so much. I was putting one of that long interview we all watched, which was so hard to hear. I've been putting it in my editor this morning. I made it sound better. It's easier to hear, and I've been working on captions for it. And some of the stuff I missed because we couldn't hear it in the courtroom the first time. It's like she was lying from day one. She changed her story multiple times. What else did they need? I mean, her going to the dumpster, and it wasn't a I know she tried to send that text message to Special Agent Solomon and claim that it was really Danny that went to the dumpster, but she made or, he took the car and her phone was still just plugged in into the car, and so it was really him that had gone, even though her phone had shown it. But bitch, you kept lying. You're the one who came up with the Orgel story on the fly. You came up with that in an instant and you stuck with it even in private. If you were lying for Danny to law enforcement, why would you be trying to convince him in private that you had went to get Orgel? It's so obvious. It was so obvious. Your ugly crying claws were we're so happy he got his justice too. I had a feeling they were going to convict on all. Now I have a question in Georgia. Well, I thought so, but I don't think the death penalty is on the table with this, but I'm not sure. But I don't think it was a death penalty case because then you'd have to have a special defense attorney, like they'd have to be death penalty approved, right? Thank you, Shambles. She'll be more concerned about wait, what'd Tit say? Are you talking about Billy Joe? Because I must have missed her comment. But yeah, I've seen some screenshots about some of Billy Joe's comments throughout this. I've heard some stuff that other people have said she has said in other chats. I don't know if that's true. Some of the stuff I've heard I haven't seen a screenshot on, but a lot of the things that I've heard I have seen screenshots on, y'all. Some of you have emailed me some and whatnot. And um, listen, listen. If there was domestic violence, and there very well could have been. I don't know. I wasn't in that home. None of us were in that home. We don't know if there was domestic violence at all. But if there was domestic violence, it would have came up somehow on Cross from Sassy Pants. It absolutely would have been something that Sassy Pants approached to Danny when Danny was on the stand. If there was domestic violence, it would have been something that he could have used as a defense in his case in chief, but he did not present a case in chief. So to now try to run around and start making these claims that this has something to do with domestic violence is just absurd to me. Absurd. It's like, is we did anybody hear anything about domestic violence the entire time we were panel hopping prior to this trial? Anybody remember hearing anything like that? Now, do I think that these 2 were nasty and aggressive towards one another? I could see that. I absolutely could see that. Hey, Shannon, it's full circle for me. I helped get Tragedy Comes away from her door to a jury finding her guilty on all charges. Yep, 1000%. That's why I said I feel like this case specifically, I feel definitely closer to, and I think it's just because it's the first case where I have followed it from day one, followed the online circus, the court stuff, proceedings, every last, you know, motion that they did before this trial and then the trial and finally seeing justice come. It's been very eye-opening and enlightening on so many fronts. So many fronts. Yeah, I'll keep working on the captions and I'll load it. I'll load it, country. I just fired up a live quickly as soon as I heard that it was in. Verdict was in. I'm so glad they did it. Yeah, I didn't think it was a death penalty case. Thank you, Nicole. I did not think it was. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be life. I think because of her age, they'll probably offer her parole as well. I'm worried. Oh, don't worry about that. This it was not a death penalty case. Absolutely. Just skimming through. Yeah, and there was another thing that was sent to no, this one wasn't sent to me. It was posted on somebody else's story about how she wasn't there because she was afraid of the people. We've been watching this trial for 2.5 weeks. There's nobody there, and that was so sad. We all noticed that, and we were all heartbroken by that, realizing that nobody not I shouldn't say nobody, because Claus was there were a couple other people in the courtroom, but for the most part, it was empty. Empty. Yeah. I'm glad they got that. Okay, I was kinda joking about it earlier, like, "Oh my gosh, they're asking ridiculous questions," which, you know, Superman and Sassy Pants both thought they were ridiculous questions for the jury to be asking the judge, and they kinda were, but hey, they got their ice, they got their lunch, and we got guilty on all charges. All charges. Yeah, Soup. She is on YouTube, but she is not there for her grandbaby. Soup said what she said, and I agree with what Soup said. That is her grandbaby. And I don't want to see BJ in that court now when she could have been there during the trial. Keep yourself pity where you've been hiding out during the trial of your grandson's murderer. Your grandson. Mm. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, how does deep? How bad would that suck to head back to the account? I'll go ahead and drop a link if anybody wants to add to this, say anything. I mean, like I said, it was like an impromptu live. I had thought about doing one to like sit on jury watch and see if and kind of go through the timeline, but it seems kind of silly to go through the timeline now because guilty, all charges, guilty. Were there ever charges or times where Ellie was called for issues between oh, yeah, we learned that throughout this trial multiple times. That and in fact, that came up great point, Gavel, that came up more in this trial than anything about Danny and Leilani. It came from Paul, it came from Danny, it came from both babysitters, It came from someone else testifying that Leilani and her mother were explosive towards one another. And like Paul said, he was just like, I just didn't like being around when her and mom were together. Oh. Yep, you have, Grandma. You have. Oh, don't be none yet. It was a good verdict. It's a good verdict. It was one we were all hoping and praying for. Yes, guilty on all charges. Malice murder, 2 felony murders, abuse of a corpse, malice, 2. There's another one I'm missing, and then 14 counts of lying to law enforcement, making a false statement. Oh my god, Judge Jones. I don't think she should be offered parole for any reason. And I understand that. I'm just saying, okay, so here's the reason I think she will be offered a parole is because of her age. She's a very young adult, and she's a woman. I do think that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's on the table. I haven't read that, but I do think that they'll offer parole. No emotion, no emotion, Shannon, whatsoever. I mean, even in times where there was a couple times throughout the trial, I'd pause and I'd be like, I'm not understanding this because, like, even if, and I put that in quotes, if she is not the murderer, then they're still showing your baby. Like when they were showing Quentin what they had found of Quentin, when they were talking about what they had found of Quentin, when they were talking about the landfill and all of that stuff, even during those moments, I'd be showing a ton of emotion. We saw law enforcement officers on the stand and lay people on the stand showing 1,000 times more emotion than she ever did until this verdict was read. She couldn't even sit and make sure her grandson got justice. He had nobody in the court for Quentin. Now I did see his uncle was there a couple of days. I saw him at least 2 days there was an uncle there, but I don't know if the uncle was just there because Paul was testifying, but I did see, Joe or Michael, he goes by both names. I did see him in there, once or twice, or I know one definitely twice. He could have been in there more. I know that, Ellen, I thought a lot more would be there. I'm grateful they found her guilty. I wouldn't say I'm happy because right, and that's a great point. I am great. I agree with that. She got what she deserved. She got what she deserved. In the eyes of the law, and as much as we can bring justice to these situations, because it's just so heartbreaking. Quinn is just such a. It, we don't even know. So much potential just lost, and for what? And for what? Do you guys think she'll ever speak on the truth? You think she'll ever come out and tell us what happened to Quentin? Does anybody think that at all? I don't think she will. It makes no sense to me. Grandparents love it. It is a different kind of love. It is. And my mama would have never failed me if something like that happened. She would have been there every step of the way. You couldn't keep me out of the courtroom. I'd be there early and leave late. Like, it's your last connection to like, mm-mm. You could not keep me out of that courtroom. I don't even care if there was a ton of people that I was scared of. You couldn't keep me out of that courtroom. I have this grandson the same age now as Quentin when he passed. I can't even imagine. Exactly. Exactly. BJ filed a petition to get custody of the other kids from local news. It might have had something to do with her not going to trial. Let me look that up. Or Shay, if you're in here, if you have that, let me know. But no, she specifically said she wasn't going to the trial because she was afraid of the people. She had left town because she was afraid of the people, and she wasn't going to attend the trial because she was afraid of the people. which is very bizarre considering that she was at every pre-hearing leading up to the trial. Yeah, I mean, look at what they're doing now in Sebastian's case. You're right. It's her look at it from her perspective, it's her daughter and grandchild, she still loves them both, and nobody said she didn't. To be in a courtroom must be hard emotionally because that's your baby girl and justice for listen, all I'm saying is my thoughts and that you could not keep me out of there. You could not keep me away from that, 1, and she attended all the other stuff, 2. Um, but yeah, you're allowed to feel that way too, absolutely, we all are entitled to our opinions on this matter. She's not the one on stand, she was not the one on trial, she is not found guilty of anything, so no one needs to come at her for that, but um, now spreading, I don't know, accusations and narratives, it is just not a good look. It's not a good look. Of course she'll appeal. They always appeal. Thank you, Shay. Malice, 2 felony, 1 disposing of the body, a false report of a crime, and 14 false statements. Thank you. Yeah, I think she'll appeal that other chat told Cra well, they do, I mean, instantly, it's like the one of the very first things the defense attorney will do is file an appeal. Happens in every, uh, like, guilty murder situation. Oh, of course, Clipper, you know you can do that anytime. Yeah, she stared at those pictures and did nothing. And that's what we saw in that, in the interrogations and in the interviews, and all of that was how she would be a normal demeanor, but when it was something directed towards her or she was caught in a lie, her emotions exploded and filled the room, as one special agent said, and I thought that that was great. Felony murder in Georgia is life without? Okay. Sentencing, yes, they're not doing sentencing today. They are gonna schedule that for another day. Yeah, I'll replay it. Hang on. I got it pulled right up. Let me go back to where oh, no, I didn't. I don't have it pulled up here, but I'll replay it. It was really quick, and I'm happy to, especially that guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
I have received a note, and it says we have reached a verdict.
Hey, Shay.
All right, thank you, Deputy Smith.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you may have a seat. Thank you very much. And I understand that you have received a verdict. I just want to say, first of all, to those who are in the audience, there has been a jury verdict reached. To everyone in attendance, and many of you have been here for quite some time, I will ask that there not be any emotional reactions and no disruptive outbursts. So at this point, I am going to ask the foreperson to please stand. Juror 5, and have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Was it unanimous?
Yes, it was.
Has the verdict been filed in or filled in and signed and dated by you?
Yes, it has.
And if you would please hand the verdict to Deputy Solomon. Thank you, Deputy Solomon, for handing that up.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump down. I might come up in a second. I gotta finish the
Awesome. Thank you, Shay.
welcome in.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask council to approach and take a look at the verdict form.
Jonesy was in here. She's working, but I'm pretty sure she's listening because she commented early in the stream. So I think she heard it. She put some clapping emojis. I don't see anybody there for Quentin. I really don't. But I mean, I wouldn't know what Bubba's looks like or his family or anything.
As to the verdict, it reads as follows. We, the jury, find as follows: malice murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 4, concealing the death of another. We find the defendant guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We find the defendant guilty. Count 6, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 7, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 8, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 9, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 10, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 11, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 12, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 13, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 14, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 15, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 16, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 17, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 18, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. And count 19, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Okay. And is there anything further from the state? From the defense?
No, we asked both.
Sir. So, members of the jury, this is something that very often happens. You will be asked questions by the clerk, 3 questions in particular, I believe, and simply answer.
Okay, so then they just poll the jury and see if everyone's, was still a yes on it, and they all were. They all were. Isn't this crazy? No, she's absolutely not. Absolutely not. So here's what Shay popped up. So this is from April. In April, the mother of Leilani Simon, Billy Joe Howell, is petitioning for custody of Simon's surviving children. Simon's 20-month-old son, Quentin Simon, was reported missing by his mother on October 5th, 2022. After a 6-week search, remains belonging to the toddler were found at Chatham County landfill, which led to Simon being arrested and charged with her son's murder. According to court records, Howell filed a petition for child custody at the end of March. The defendants listed are Simon and the fathers of the other 2 children. This comes after a report led by Senator John Ossoff titled Abuse and Neglect of Children in Georgia's Foster Care System, listed Quentin Simon as a child death that may have been prevented if it weren't for mismanagement in the Georgia foster care system. And that goes to Leilani and Billy Joe putting in the paperwork and doing this workaround from keeping CPS to keep CPS from taking the kids. And we heard that through Leilani's own damn mouth in her first interview. Leilani Simon appeared in the first motion hearing of the year for her son's murder case on March 26. Okay. And she was and like I said, Billy Joe was, I don't know where this is now. Of course, it's in family court, so we won't know unless someone speaks out publicly about it. We're watching with a professional one. Oh my gosh. No problem, no problem. Yeah, here I can pop back over and show you. She breaks down a little bit here when they start to
Further
pull the
questions?
jury.
Madam Clerk.
That's about it
One,
that I saw.
Was this your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 2. Juror number 2. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 3. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 4. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 5. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 6. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 7. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 8. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 9. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 10. Was that your verdict then?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes, ma'am.
Juror number 11.
Yes.
Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 12. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Anything further at this time with the juries,
No, Your Honor.
with the jurors?
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank
That was about it until here we see a little bit more
you to
emotion.
speak with anyone about your experience, but you may do so if you choose to. I am ordering that there be no contact with the jurors
And I'm gonna
in the
put- I
courthouse
liked his face.
or on
I
the
feel like-
courthouse property.
I feel like Mr. Redenbacher was just there because he had to be.
But I do release you at
He's
this
like, oh,
point.
well,
Thank
they
you.
did what they did.
You're free to go.
Jurors exiting.
I bet he thinks it was the right verdict. That's pretty much all we saw out of her. A little bit of breaking down here at the
We are
very end.
adjourned.
Thank you.
Trying to look in the audience, I don't see anybody I recognize, but again, I wouldn't recognize Bubba's family to know if they were in there. No, she has cried a couple other times, but they were just trinkles of tears. She did like 1 or 2 tears here and there, but not much at all. Not much at all. Right? He was. So the DV claim came, how she worded it, I have to dig back through my email, but the way she worded it was, you don't, you don't know how bad the DV was, or you don't know all about the DV situation. It was a statement very similar to that. So it's like, no, we're not gonna put this on domestic violence. It would have been used as a defense if they could have. The defense is going to use anything they can. And I am confused as to why people are still trying to put this on Danny, considering, and I'm not saying he's not culpable in the behaviors that the two of them had. Yep, they were both heavy into drug use. He was drinking heavily. I don't know if she was, but he was. They were both barely functioning humans from their own testimony. This isn't like me putting that on them. This is his testimony and others' testimony about the drug use and the drinking and all that. So, there is a role there, and it wasn't a good environment, but does that mean he had anything to do with Quentin's death? No, and I think that that was very evident throughout the case that was presented by the state. It was very evident. He was willing, and people like to go back to, well, Danny lied and said, he saw Quentin at 5:30 that morning when he left for work, or 6, or whatever it was. Okay, so he lied the first statement, but we found out in this trial that they got to the bottom of that very first day. Throughout that 14-hour questioning of all 3 of them, it came out on October 5th that he did not, in fact, see Quentin that morning. And if you wanna stick with that one lie being so damning on Danny, what about all the lies that Leilani told? Because they caught her in multiple, dozens and dozens of lies. Dozens. Which one, country? Which interview? I mean, there's a lot of interviews. I'm hoping now that the, case there's a verdict read, someone will be requesting the court documents, and then we'll get to hear, like, better versions, better audios and whatnot. To some degree, Tits, I agree, especially, again, it goes back to, if there's culpability on Billy Joe with the workaround through CPS, it's like, okay, you set this up and you claim that, you didn't want Leilani to lose her kids, so you were gonna take on this kinship guardianship agreement, but then nobody followed it. Yeah, it was done on paper. And that's heartbreaking. So many excuses are being made. None of those excuses amount to a hill of beans because Quentin was still murdered. It's just heartbreaking, heartbreaking. No matter how you slice it, it's heartbreaking. I could see why he would think Quentin would be there. He never went to his pack and play. It was dark in the room and didn't seem off to him as he's running out the door to get to work. Yeah, I can agree with that. You glance around. I don't think he goes and he definitely didn't seem like the person who went and inspected all the kids and gave them goodbye kisses, and he never even made that claim. So he's probably just like, "Yeah, I saw him that morning," 'cause, get up out of bed, glanced around, everything seems normal. The pack and play was way in the corner on the opposite side of the room, right, NorCal Jim. I suspect that he just had the assumption that Quentin was in there at that time early in the morning. I would agree with you on that. We do not know where the kids are, and honestly, we don't need to know. Those poor kiddos. Those poor kiddos. I pray nothing but blessings on them for the rest of their life. Why do some people think it's okay to harm true DV victims by falsely claiming DV or pointlessly in public? We don't know unless there is evidence, and they're not provided. Yes, there has been zero evidence provided towards that claim. Leading up to now, all this crap on YouTube prior to this, there was no claims of DV, nothing in the trial about DV. So, mm, I don't know. I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy that this, returned a guilty verdict on all charges, and I hope the ones that love Quentin can start to get some healing from this whole process. I hope the ones that found Quentin can start to get some healing on this process, and even for all the ones that Quentin's life touched, I hope they start to get some healing on this process. I had 3 kids in a 5-year space with a devoted dad. He would not have checked the kids when leaving for work. He would have let yeah, to let a sleeping baby lie. Absolutely. Absolutely. Alright, guys. That's it. I just wanted to hop on here and hear the verdict with y'all. I feel like we were in it for the long haul. And, yeah, tragedy was guilty on all charges. And I will probably do a live when they do the sentencing. Absolutely. Just to kinda wrap it all up and I'm just so thankful. So thankful for Quentin. He deserved that. Remember all that screaming, justice for Quentin, justice for Quentin? That happened today. That happened today. I'll see you guys on the next one. Hug your babies. Love, love.